Okay, I think we're back. We're back, and it's me and April. Just me and April. Excellent.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker is April Mullen. With 15 years experience, April is the Director of Brand and Content Marketing at SparkPost. And in June 2016, April co-founded Women of Email, an organization with over 6,000 members on 6 continents and I think 150 countries, if I remember that correctly, that is aimed at driving positive change for women in email marketing. April, welcome. Take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And thank you everyone for joining today. We are really excited to talk about the topic of deliverability. We know that all email marketers, maybe deliverability is the bane of your existence, but it's a necessary thing that we have to understand and to make sure that those emails that we work really hard on make it to the inbox and delight our consumers. So I'm going to talk about good deliverability, starting with strategy. And, as I mentioned, deliverability is really confusing. It's for a lot of email marketers that aren't focused specifically on deliverability, it's just something that disrupts your day. It catches you by surprise. You might be working really hard on making sure that your emails resonate with people. But at the end of the day, like one bad slip up and all of a sudden you're in trouble and your boss is like, why aren't we hitting our revenue numbers? So I want to talk about there's a reason why deliverability is so hard. And that's because, as a lot of you know, there's a ton of spam out in the world. And so the mailbox providers like Gmail and Yahoo are really set out to protect those consumers from receiving all of that spam. And as a result, some of our legitimate emails get caught up in that. So we have to kind of do this crazy dance of making sure that our emails aren't mistaken for spam and are relevant. We also saw through some research that we did, that SparkPost did with Forrester, that complaint rates, so people hitting the spam button, actually increased steadily in 2020. We saw a ton of spam email, a lot of volume last year. And so even consumers are telling us that their inboxes are full of mail that is irrelevant, might even be malicious, and have links that are, have malware and other things, phishing attempts. But the good news is for all of us is that 62%, they want email updates, according to the research we did with Forrester. They still like email. It's a really nice channel in terms of it's not too disruptive. It's something that people can come to when they have time. I think the mailbox providers have done a really good job of protecting consumers from a lot of that spam, also making foldering easier, and just making email something that's a lot easier and better to engage with. And I think the mobile device has also done a lot for email in that people can check their email pretty frequently. It's not like I'm going to go to a workstation and check my email or do that slow dial up that some of us remember. But it's like a fluid part of our day. People are checking email 12, 15, 20 times a day. So it's a lot more manageable. And again, it's not interrupting people. It's more something they go to when they have time. So I want to give an example of the message landscape, because I hear a lot of marketers talk about messages is triggered and transactional getting confused, and they're not actually the same thing. So I want to just kind of talk about the different mail streams that people send, so that as we're going into how the mailbox providers, specifically Gmail, looks at reputation and determining if your emails make it to the inbox, that it really is categorized by these different messages. So you have on the left-hand side, on the top, transactional, and then below that, promotional. And then as we move from left to right, we have triggered and then batch. So transactional and triggered, an example of that would be like password resets, shipping receipts, things like that. Transactional batch could be things that you're sending once a month, but in really high volume, like bank statements or bills or invoices. Privacy policy updates, when GDPR happened and CCPA went into effect, we saw all of these privacy emails. Those were batch communications. And then on the promotional side with Triggered, a welcome campaign. Some people say a welcome is transactional, but I don't think it is. It's actually like usually comes with an offer. It's a little bit promotional. Yes, it is confirming something that the user did, but it is definitely promotional. So make sure you have an unsubscribe on it. And then when we get to the batch side of promotional, this is like your typical like large promotions, marketing communications, newsletters, things like that. And when we look at this by Gmail, everything that you see on the top typically goes to updates, and the things on the bottom go to promotions, just so you can kind of understand how these things land in the inbox. So this is kind of a crazy slide. The next few slides are going to be a little graphically heavy, but I want to talk about Gmail in particular, because I feel like a lot of people have questions about that. And there are over 100 data points in Gmail's algorithm to determine reputation when a mail hits their servers and they're determining what to do with it. But these are the top 5 data points, are the most common ones, and they're used in different ways. And I want to spend a little bit of time on this. So the very top you have, and this is the most important, it's your sending IP, your sending domain, your bounce domain, the top level domain of any sending subdomain. So this carries the greatest importance, and we have found that it can take 90 days to develop reputation for a IP domain pair. It also, like if you damage this in some way, you have to go through and you have to go back and restore it almost like a warm up again. So this is not just new implementations, but if something bad has happened where your reputation has been damaged, it's about 90 days to get that restored. So you want to do this right. You want to protect it and make sure you're not having to start from scratch and warm up again. Brand reputation is also tied to your domain. I know that's kind of confusing, but it's also associated, Gmail is also associated with Google search. So website data, SEO, search reputation, your ads, data on your ads, all of these things can link back to your email at the brand level. So you don't want to be spammy or clickbaity with anything that you're doing at a brand level. And then the next one is the template. So the HTML coding in your email does contribute to your sending reputation. So if you change your email content without changing the HTML code, it can stagnate your reputation. So don't carry poor reputation with you when you're warming up a new IP domain pair, or if you're trying to restore your reputation from a problem. If you have a campaign that performs well, don't really mess with it too much. Because you can use that to boost reputation and keep your reputation high if you already have good reputation. One that comes up a lot, it's of lesser importance, and I do want to say, I don't think I alluded to this, but it's kind of importance from the top, working your way down. Content and keywords are not really that as bad as people think. So Gmail doesn't just say like you have a word in the subject line that's triggering, so you're automatically going to go to the spam folder. It has to be in combination with some other things. But content like linking to malware or having a link that points to, something that is on a blacklist, like you obviously don't want to do that. So that's where content becomes more important than spammy words. And Google actually also recommends removing links to websites that ask for personal information. I worked in financial services for many years, and we actually had a rule that we never had forms one click away from the email. We always had some kind of page in between, and you might say, well, that's really damaging, but actually it serves a really good purpose in helping people to not. First of all, in financial services, people are a lot more sensitive, but also like you don't want people to think it's malware, and you also don't want Gmail to potentially think that it's malware. And then, of course, last but not least, the domain in your list ID and the headers, as well as subscribers in your list, they contribute to your reputation. Groupings of email addresses from purchase lists can be recognized as such by Gmail. So this is why I'm like, don't buy lists. First of all, that's illegal in a lot of places. In the US, we tend to be very loose with privacy standards. It's kind of problematic. It's very problematic. But don't purchase lists, because this will really damage you. Even if it's legal in certain areas, a lot of places it's not. It's going to be, you're going to identify yourself as a spammer. So this could be problematic. So let me talk about this in action. So in today's campaign reputation landscape, I'm going to talk about, I mentioned I worked in financial services, so I'll use that as an example. So the marketing message stream over here on the promotional batch has a positive reputation on the IP domain pair and the brand. However, the template has collected quite a few complaints over time, and content subject matter sometimes scores low. And sometimes they purchase lists for promotions. Password reset emails, performing great. They're highly engaged with and always show up in the primary tab, as they're separated from all other mailings due to their high priority and time sensitivity. When we get to, such as promotional triggered, like the welcome campaign, as I explained in that framework, the template is a little bit tired. Maybe there's a high hard bounce rate, because that does happen a lot actually on promotional triggered for welcome emails. You'll have a lot of people that might give bad information. So this is where maybe having some kind of upfront list hygiene process and validation process could help you. But oftentimes we will see higher bounce rates on those campaigns. Moving over to transactional batch, we have the bank statements. They perform well. They have positive reputation. The template was recently refreshed though. So the bank statement has account information as well. So it's affecting the reputation as it appears fishy. Maybe there's low engagement too, because people are like, I log into my bank account every day. I don't need to see the statement. That's personally what I do. I never look at the statement. And then last but not least, lead gen. This is purchase list, which, like I said, a lot of time and a lot of places and a lot of jurisdictions, this is illegal. But in the US, this is still a thing, and I hate it. But sometimes marketers here in the US will hire affiliates to promote their products or services. And so maybe this isn't just list purchases, but it's like, I'm gonna have this brand send information on my behalf, but they're gonna link back to my site. And this can really hurt your reputation. It can bleed over. In this situation with very strong IP domain and brand reputations, it may not be noticeable to the sender. So, but these are typically not well performing. So wanted to show that. But let's say that, like, okay, and in this landscape, actually, this is actually pretty good. Like Gmail in general will probably say, okay, this is probably a legitimate sender. But let's say that, you're warming up new IPs or domains. So Gmail's automatically going to treat you as suspicious. Maybe you just had some kind of like breach where a hacker sent a bunch of emails to your list. I've experienced this in the past. It was horrible. And you're kind of back to ground zero, having to start up the warm up again. With no reputation or bad reputation, your bank statements are suddenly in trouble. Your marketing messages as well. Your password resets, they'll probably be unaffected, but unless the lead gen volume is significant enough, it could potentially even come into your password reset. So, taking away the IP domain, positive reputation, you have a lot more red that can affect the campaign. So what steps could you take to ensure success? Stop third-party affiliate marketing, refresh those poorly performing templates. That will really help. And remove any purchased or rented lists. Sometimes some of those things will really help you to get back into good reputation. But I want to focus, so now that we've kind of talked about that landscape and like how, at a very high conceptual level, how Gmail operates, I want to talk about how really at the end of the day, your emails need to resonate with the consumer. And there are key things you can do at certain points of the life cycle. This is where your contact strategy comes in to really help you drive success. So a lot of you have seen some version of this where, it's showing like where people are early in their journey all the way through the life cycle, and you probably have different automations and batch promotions and things happening on transactionals, trigger transactionals, all the different messages that I showed in that framework early on. But the most important points are at the beginning of the life cycle, the way that you acquire those names, the way you welcome them, onboard them, and then periodically making sure that they have some kind of engagement, and then also how you win them back, and then making the call to have to re-permission them in order to send to them again. So looking at re-engagement or even disengagement, like okay, it's time to move on. So again, permission is half the battle. Again, I know a lot of you are in other countries and you're like, of course you have to have permission, but here in the US, it's just not always happening. So I want to give you some great examples of creative ways that brands have permissioned. So here's an example of a brand here in North America. They might be in the UK as well, called Casper. And I received this ad, and as soon as I click on this ad, I go right to the website where, what do they do? Right away, they're trying to ask me for email. And it's 15% off my purchase. And if you think about that for a mattress, that's a lot of money. And so I thought this was a really good application of driving ads to people that might be in market for a mattress. And I was at the time. And so they were very clever in their targeting. Another example, this is an alcohol delivery company. I don't know if you can see this, but sometimes even the legalese, I think, can be kind of fun. So they give you a $5 off offer to subscribe to emails. They say, plus our emails are pretty good. So I love this kind of brand voice coming through. But it says, our lawyers caught wind of this offer and would like a quick word. Like, I love just the level of personality here. And like, even with stuff like privacy and how you're going to use their information, they're being super personable. Like, I love this creativity and definitely using brand voice to resonate with the consumer and talk to them like they're people, because they are. The New York Times, they have a ton of newsletters, and a lot of them are free. Actually, they're all free. And I love this way of so toward the bottom of the page, there's actually a form where you can enter your email address. But I love how this form doesn't really look like a form. It's like really touchable, like buttons that if you hit the plus sign, all of a sudden you're subscribed. So you can quickly scan and see the things that you want and easily add yourself to any of these newsletters. So very clever way of allowing people to choose their preferences right at the onset when there's a lot of complexity. Here's an example from a company called WAG. It's like a dog walking company. And I like this because they actually have email address collection as part of their kind of registration process, where you get a free walk and they have to ask some information about you. And you can't see it up here because they're at 0%, but as you're going through the process, the slider bar actually will like expand and they give you seconds. So it's like, it's going to take 5 minutes. That might be a little too much friction, to be honest, but I'd be willing to bet that they're still storing things right from the first screen. And then when they hit next, if they abandon, then they may retarget them. And they're telling people you're going to be on the list if you enter your email address here. But I really thought this was an interesting and clever way to present opt-in. Okay, so now we have added where they're on our list, or in our database, I should say. I hate the term list. I don't know why. They're in our database, our very cherished first-party database. And now we want to welcome them and onboard them. And I think like most companies do have welcome emails, although I teach a university course, and as part of that course in class, we do a live learning lab where I actually have the students sign up for 3 different email programs. And you would be surprised of the major brands that still don't send a welcome email at the point of an email address being given. So it's it seems probably for a lot of you watching, like, of course, like this is easy, this is low-hanging fruit. But a lot of brands aren't doing it, including major Fortune 500 companies. So honor that value exchange that just took place. There are companies out there that really, most companies value email addresses. In fact, some publishing companies, if you give your email address, will actually let you subscribe for free versus you have to pay to get the subscription. Otherwise, I think it was Forbes or Fortune where I noticed that recently. So they're literally saying if you give us your email address, it is worth the value that you would otherwise have to pay to get a subscription. So honor that value exchange that just took place. And I love this email from Supergoop. They call it Welcome to the Movement. And Supergoop is a brand that is very much like a movement. They're big on preventing skin cancer with this high-end sunscreen. And they have a lot of these really innovative products for sunscreen. As a fair-skinned person, I've come to really like their stuff. But they say, welcome to the movement. And I love how the CEO here is saying, I'm super excited you're coming along on this journey to help change the way the world thinks about sunscreen. There's a nice offer. She's signing her name. She's giving her Instagram handle so you can follow her. Just a really nice email, bright, colorful, very human. Just a fantastic introduction here. And it's also, talking about what's going to come. So it's setting the proper expectation. Here's an example by, I'm trying to remember the company, Well and Good. And they say, you're in. And I like this email because it's very like celebratory, like, makes people feel really good. And one of the things they say right there at the beginning, instead of just welcoming them, they start to give them their top rated content or the most read content. And here's a longer version of it. It's hard to see what the articles are. That's really not the point. The point is they're carefully curating and updating this welcome email to include content that's interesting to the subscriber. G2 Crowd, I'm rooting for you. Early in the process, saying, this is not the welcome email. This is more like once they start to onboard, complete your profile. And it's this community manager and her headshot trying to get people to give a little bit more information. This is Brooks Running. This is awesome because it's actually using progressive profiling. So they're not dropping them at a profile page, which is okay. It's okay to ask for people to fill out a profile and give their preferences. But sometimes people don't want to do that. They may not take the time to do it. So I love this example from Brooks because first of all, it's just a cute email. I love the illustration, the illustrative text. But they say, tell us about yourself and where you run. So they push you down a path. They should probably have a gender fluid option, but they, say, do you want shop for men or women? And then are you on roads, trail, gym? I forgot what the last one was. I think it might be walking. So that based on what you clicked on, they're adding that to your profile and boom, you're going to start getting communications that are based on what you clicked on. And actually, you don't have to just do this early on. You could do this. I actually recommend clients do this throughout the life cycle, just periodically, maybe at least once a year, aim that every subscriber gets some kind of communication like this. So you're asking them what they want. And, it can be as simple as collecting the click and letting that add to their profile, or actually asking them to go to a profile and preference center. Okay. So then, as I mentioned, and everything in the orange is I think, critical places to ask for data, to drive additional engagement. I mean, really every email should be an opportunity for that. You could even argue loyalty exclusives. But I wanted to focus on the offer and win back re-engagement. And plus we have limited time here. So I wanted to make sure we could cover, some of these areas well. Let's say they start to kind of fall off a little bit. Their behavior lapsed a little. Gracefully let them go, but also give them a reason to stay. So here's a great email from Anthropology. And they say, first of all, it's in their beautiful brand. It's super on brand for them. And they say, we're listening. What you think matters to us. And they're giving you a discount. So, you're able to go in and you're able to tell them a little bit more about you. They're not saying fill out your profile, your preferences, or tell us what kind of products you like. They're literally positioning this almost like a survey. So this is just a creative application of give us a little bit of information. And by the way, we'll give you 20% off, which is a great offer for them. So any customer of theirs could see this, and if their engagement has lapsed, and would probably be compelled to fill this out. Redbubble, a cool brand out in San Francisco. My friend runs email over there, Chelsea McClure, and they send an email that says, "We miss you. We've been chatting with your inbox." And you know what it said? It says it needs some art in its life. So, they're being kind of cheeky and fun, and giving you this nice, discount and to try to drive that engagement. But what if they really start to lapse? So, you've sent like these offer emails, and this is not prescriptive for like exact blueprint. Every brand is different. I would look at the average time in your buying cycle and the average time that users have for engagement with your email. So like if it's, if you're a company that, I wouldn't go longer than 12 months, but if you're a company that maybe, I like the 6-month recommendation, to be honest, but some companies it might need to be more frequent. Like if you're a grocery store, 6 months is a long time. Like if you're a grocery chain, you probably need to be engaging, every week. If they've gone a month without engaging your emails, or 2 months, that's a really long time in a grocery niche. So look at your buying cycle. And if you're seeing that behavior lapse, give them a rest. One time years ago, I had a massive segment of customers that had gone dormant, and there was no re-engagement campaign in place or anything. And my boss was like, "We should probably just purge them." And I said, it was actually the opposite scenario of what usually happens. It's usually the boss saying, "Don't purge them," and the email marketer going, "No, we need to get rid of them." But it was actually the opposite. And I said, let's just rest them for a bit. So what we did was we waited, and we only sent them new product launch emails, which happen about every month. So we still had that, regular cadence of communication. I recommend you're touching base with your subscribers at least once a month. And it turns out just resting them made them miss us. So we called it the heart makes us grow fonder segment, which was kind of funny. And actually, anytime we sent them an email, they were our highest performing segment. So sometimes just resting this group, you resurrect them, you bring them back, and you start sending them email, and they're like, "Oh, this is interesting." But looking at their behavior, are they going to stay on the list? Do they unsubscribe? If they take no action, maybe you try one more time. And if there's no action by the end of this, like basically you need to unsubscribe. And here's some great examples. I love this one from Paul Mitchell, where they say, "We hate goodbyes, so we're emailing you one less time." And they're using their product to make a kind of it's a sad meh face. It's a sadder meh face. It's not a neutral meh, but love this. And, don't miss out. I wish they'd put a compelling offer in here. That would have been good. Urban Outfitters. This one, "Are we seriously breaking up? This sucks. We love you. Can we stay together forever?" You can check yes, or you can check no right here in the email. But it looks like a text message. It's really cute. Anymoto actually shows an email envelope right in the inbox, or like a postal envelope, but we all know this means email. "It's been a while. Do you still want to hear from us?" And they're letting you update your preferences. So this is a nice example. JetBlue says breaking up is hard to do. They put a heart in because we'll always make room for you. Let's stay together. It's complicated. We're on a break. So they're using like this really fun language to try to keep their subscribers from leaving. And these things do work. I've worked with a lot of clients over the years, and sometimes just having this level of like humanity and even a little bit of humor or touchy-feely. I mean, it really depends on your segment. Financial services might not be as forgiving of something like this, but a lot of brands, you can get away with something like this. And Teespring, they put in a cute puppy that says, "Come back." I mean, how can you resist this? This is so cute. And they're saying you should launch your next campaign. All right, so rounding out the life cycle, you want to empower your subscribers throughout the life cycle. So, there's a lot of things going on. And this is really oversimplified. I've worked with clients over the years that have way more complex ecosystems than this, but I just wanted to show this for like just the purpose of showing like beginning and end and all the things in between. So you should always have some kind of way for people to be able to tell you what they want to receive. So you can proactively ask, but in the footer of your emails, wherever you have your unsubscribe, put manage preferences. And I love how Harvard Business Review, they're a content powerhouse. They are constantly pumping out really great content. They have a lot of different subscriptions, and they do a really good job with their preference center by having like nice white space. It's easy to engage with. They're very clear about it's a tip of the day, it's daily versus weekly. The monthly update, the best of the magazine. They're even letting you pick the different categories that you would like. Like, are you into finance and economy or leadership, strategy and execution, etc. And it's just visually appealing. This is La Crusade. I love this example because they're using check boxes. They're not asking people to type a whole lot. There's some basic stuff toward the top, but then they're, having radio buttons versus check boxes versus like actually showing the colors of the pots that you like. So La Crusade is, they're like a cookware company, fancy cookware. So they want to know the types of stuff that you want. Here's an example from Spotify, making it easy with just like slider buttons. And these are actually multi-channel, so it's not just for email, but asking about the types of communications you want. REI is a company that I really like here in the US, and they actually break it up into different categories. About you, so this is kind of like your email, your zip code. Then it's your subscriptions, the types of like content that they send, or the types of subscriptions they send, and then what are your interests, so that within these subscriptions, you can get content that's tailored to your needs. And this page is responsive. It's very easy to engage with on mobile. And then last example, this is an awesome example from a client I worked with years ago. And they actually did a special campaign where they asked people, so they knew that people often bought Lee jeans from different stores, not direct to consumer, but the direct to consumer team was like, well, we still have to hit some revenue numbers. So they were like, what is the barrier here? And nobody likes to buy jeans online. It's really what it came down to, because you have to pay for shipping, then you have to pay to return it. It's really hard to buy jeans online. So they said, you know what, we're going to do a profile campaign where in exchange for asking people for some information on the types of styles and jeans and, their birth date and what gender they are and that sort of thing, we're going to give them free shipping both ways. So they can order as many pair of jeans as they want, do a try on at home, and then ship anything back that doesn't fit. And guess what? This is a form that doesn't look like a form. So I just love it. Asking, colors, fits. So this is something that anyone can do if they're trying to like quickly boost and amplify what people see in their emails, and get those their database, get their database with better data and more information on their subscribers. Give something to them in order to make this happen. So to end, understanding the rules impacting deliverability. We talked about that from a high level. Permission is obviously critical. Honoring that value exchange with welcome and onboarding, gracefully letting them go or compelling them to stay, and then keeping them empowered throughout the journey. These are all things that can help your deliverability stay humming and hopefully prevent some problems for you. All right.
Hopefully where am I? April, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
I don't know where I am. That's okay. You can hear me. That's fine. That's all we need for right now. That's all we need for right now. I love the notion that some people think of their welcome email as a transactional email. That's just sort of like that makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm meeting you. At a party. Can I get your number? And the thank you is a transactional thing. Creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, there was one question that came in. I know we're not really doing questions now, but and I can't see the person's name off the top because something's covering it. But it was going back to the template thing quickly. The sound broke up for them when you were talking about templates. Is it good to change your template? Or is it not good to change your template when it comes to reputation?
Yeah. So if your template is performing well, meaning like people are opening and clicking it and your deliverability is good, like you don't have to mess with the good things. So I wouldn't go and make drastic changes to your templates. If you, if they're not performing super well though, like you're not getting high engagement, then it's probably time to take a look at refreshing those. I know they're an operational burden to change to begin with. So oftentimes I think the problem is usually they end up getting stagnant where people aren't engaging with them as much. So That's usually the problem. It's usually not changing the templates that causes the problem. It's usually the not changing the templates that causes the problem. But when you do make changes, make sure you're careful about where you're pointing links and that sort of thing.
Right, and this is the association of the disengagement with the bad template. Got it. Cool. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you, April. That was a great presentation. Now we're gonna have another session break. Now, while I've been talking to April, I've been getting this warning message that says my page is unresponsive. So I'm gonna try to end the session. If I can't, I may have to refresh my page. So there may be a slight break while I get my tech all back going in the right direction. But anyway, April, thanks very much, and we'll see you at the panel.